Our State of the U.S. segment tonight, White House advisor Stephen Miller got into a heated exchange with CNN's Jim Acosta over a new bill that would reduce low-skilled immigration into the U.S. Acosta said the immigration bill pushed by the White House was un-American. He recited the inscription on the Statue of Liberty that reads, and I quote here, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," as his reason that the bill is supposedly un-American. Now, this has been a common refrain from liberals, but shouldn't we be more concerned with allowing people into our country who contribute and bring value? Watch this exchange.
Let me ask you a question.
That sounds like some national park revisionism.
No.
The
What I'm asking you is,
Statue of Liberty
Jim,
has always
Jim,
been
let me
a
ask you a
beacon of
question.
hope to the world
Jim,
for people to send
Jim, do you
their
believe,
people to this country.
Jim,
and they're not always going to speak
Jim,
English, Stephen.
Jim,
they're not
do you
always
believe,
going to be highly skilled. They're not always
Jim,
going to be
Jim, Jim, I appreciate your
Silicon
speech.
Valley.
Jim, I appreciate your speech. So let's talk about this.
It was a modest
Jim, let's talk about this. In 1970, when we let in 300,000 people a year, was that violating or not violating the Statue of Liberty law of the land? In the 1990s, when it was 500,000 a year, was it violating or not violating the Statue of Liberty law of the land?
Was it violating?
When it was 700,000 a year. No, tell me what years. Tell me what years. Tell me what years meet. Tell me what years meet Jim Acosta's definition of the Statue of Liberty poem law of the land. So you're saying 1 million a year is the Statue of Liberty number. 900,000 violates it.
With me now from the Center for Immigration Studies, Jessica Vaughn. Jessica, good to see you.
Glad to be here.
First of all, Jessica, were you as entertained by this little exchange, this feisty little exchange, as I was?
It was fascinating, especially for what it revealed about people like Jim Acosta's ideas of what our immigration policy should be and their kind of warped view of history. And also what struck me is that, you know, there are tired and poor Americans yearning for economic opportunity who are harmed by our current immigration policy. But Mr. Acosta does not seem to understand their plight or want to do anything about it at all. He's more concerned about using a poem for immigration policy.
Listen, I actually thought it was pretty fruitful, though. I mean, I'm pretty critical of the mainstream media and their normally pretty stupid questions. But this, even though he was intending to try to trap Stephen Miller, it was illuminating, probably due to Miller's response to show the hypocrisy that they don't truly believe this is un-American, or they would have called out different numbers. They haven't fully thought it through. I thought it was great, very fruitful. But Jessica, this bill that's being proposed by Senators Cotton and Perdue, what do you make of it?
Oh, it's a very exciting proposal that, if enacted, would be the most expansive reform of our immigration system in 50 years. And it's going to modernize our immigration system and bring it in sync with the needs of our nation today. And it's based on the recommendations of a bipartisan Blue Ribbon Commission that in 1995 made these very same recommendations for the most part, led by the great civil rights leader Barbara Jordan. And that Bill Clinton couldn't bring himself to enact, George Bush wasn't interested in, but we still need to make these changes. And I think it's the American voters are going to be very excited about it and start pushing their members of Congress to first discuss it and then enact it.
Right, and if there weren't so much divisive rhetoric in our nation, if there weren't so much anti-Trump hatred, and that's not to say that everyone has to like or support what Donald Trump does, but there's this mentality that if it comes from Donald Trump, it's automatically bad. If there weren't that type of attitude in our nation, I think this is a bill that we could all come together on because it just makes sense. Right now, only about 20% of immigrants who come to our nation legally, only 20% of them are based off of economic necessity or jobs that they're coming. Most of it's based off of family, and then there's something like 50,000 who are based just on a supposed diversity lottery. They have no reason for coming other than they want to be here. This changes that system changes it to a point system, and that's the part I want you to explain, this point system.
Well, the merit-based point system is going to replace the current employment-based immigration system, which is basically people who were brought in as guest workers who convert to green cards after years. And it's driven by employers who are looking for cheaper labor so that they can avoid hiring Americans. The point system is going to give the people who have the greatest skills, the most to offer our country, who are of a young age, who have familiarity with the English language, who are most likely to be not only self-sufficient, but actually innovative entrepreneurs who currently there's no place in them in our legal immigration system right now. And these are going to be the people who create jobs rather than displace Americans from jobs. And some of them will be family members of people who are already here, and that's fine too, but they're going to be chosen because of what they bring to our country and who they are, not who they were related to.
Right, and address the concerns that are coming from Democrats right now. One of them is something that you mentioned, English proficiency. That's going to be something that increases your number of points, which would increase your likelihood of being awarded a green card and the ability to live in the United States. So speaking English and then this merit-based, this skill-based, Jessica, is that ahistorical when it comes to immigration policies throughout the history of our nation?
Well, it is for the United States. But it's something that a lot of other countries do, and it makes perfect sense that people who already have a command of English, whether it's their first language or not, are going to be able to hit the ground running when they get here, and that's huge. And that there's nothing discriminatory about that I can see. I think it just makes common sense, and it's worked really well. Countries like Canada, for example, give preference to immigrants who can speak either French or English because those are the languages of their community, and they're going to be more likely to succeed. The other thing I really like about this program is that because it's competitive based on points, we'll get the cream of the crop of all the applicants every year. Right now, we just accept pretty much anyone who meet bare minimal criteria, and that creates a waiting list that goes on, and it's almost like a cruel joke to people to take their application fee, and they're not going to get in at any time in the near future. This is a competitive program every single year, and is going to bring in a new and different kind of immigrant that I think people are really going to embrace.
Right, and that waiting list that you mentioned, that causes a lot of people who are highly skilled, who might be proficient in English, it causes them not to be able to come to America and bring their value to our nation and also enjoy that opportunity. Last question, Jessica, and if you don't mind, make it quick because we're almost out of time, but what's the savings idea? He was talking about some financial benefit to this. How much are we, the taxpayer, going to save if this plan is enacted?
We're going to save billions over time because right now half of all legal immigrants are accessing welfare programs. That's going to be much less likely when we're choosing people who are going to be self-sufficient.
Right, and there you go. 5 years, you're not allowed to be on government welfare under this new program. Jessica, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.